Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. One of the U.S. senators who's trying to stop our financial system from being further rigged for the wealthy is Democrat Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. And she just torched the Federal Reserve and Chairman Jerome Powell for delivering a gift to Wells Fargo Bank in the wake of the bank's recent criminality and corruption.
Less than 2 weeks ago, the Fed board decided to lift Wells Fargo's asset cap. You couldn't even wait until Wells managed to make it one whole year without being caught in a major financial scandal. In just the past 6 months, Wells has been caught and confessed to cheating its customers, cheating its investors, and cheating its workers, the trifecta. For the Fed to give them a gold star and tell Wells it's okay to expand the number of customers, investors, and employees that it can cheat is an outrageous giveaway to one of Wall Street's most derelict banks.
In 2018, the Federal Reserve imposed an asset cap on Wells Fargo, limiting the company's permitted assets to a value of $1.95 trillion. This punishment came after the bank engaged in several widespread illegal practices. To meet sales targets, for example, the bank secretly opened up millions of unauthorized bank and credit card accounts for customers without their consent. In recent years, the bank continued engaging in illegal practices and fraud. However, the Fed voted this month to lift the bank's asset cap. The Fed is also lowering requirements for JP Chase, Goldman Sachs, and other too-big-to-fail banks.
At a time when the economic data are flashing red, these short-sighted changes will increase the likelihood that these mega banks once again tank the economy and then come back here to beg Congress for bailouts when their risky bets go bust. To sum up Trump's economic agenda, it's chaos and pain for the middle class and even more profits for the powerful. American families will face higher costs and new risks to their health care and their bank accounts. Unemployment will tick up, and our economic growth will slow. And that's not just me saying this. It is exactly what the Fed's latest economic projections indicate.
Warren noted that the loosening of bank requirements comes on top of the destabilizing Trump tariffs and economic policies. The U.S. Senate is considering the Trump tax and spending bill known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The measure would cut Medicaid, take away health care for millions of people, and give tax breaks to the wealthy.
I hope my Republican colleagues will wake up to the chaos around us. It falls to Congress to stop Trump's trade war and kill this big, ugly bill. And Chair Powell, it falls to you and the Fed board not to pile additional risk onto Trump's existing chaos by dismantling the safeguards that protect American families from another Wall Street meltdown.
Chairman Jerome Powell did not directly respond to Warren's criticism of the Fed for loosening bank limitations and regulations, but Powell appeared chastened as he slumped back in his chair and answered other questions softly. Warren asked about the possibility that Donald Trump's rising budget deficits will trigger inflation.
If certain policies would materially drive up the national debt and increase the debt to GDP ratio over time, could that make it more likely that we would see inflation, all else being equal?
I mean, theoretically, sure, fiscal policy can add to inflation, but that's again, that's really not something we comment on. We try to stay away from fiscal policy.
I understand you don't comment on it, but I do appreciate your acknowledgement of the math here.
Several economists have insisted that if the debt to GDP ratio increases, inflation will almost certainly rise, and consumers will feel the financial hit. In any case, Powell's appearance in front of Senator Warren underscores the argument that no job in Washington may be as lonely as chairman of the Federal Reserve. Donald Trump has been blasting Powell and the Fed for refusing to lower interest rates. Trump's White House claims that keeping interest rates where they are is putting a damper on economic growth, thereby hurting Trump politically and helping Democrats. Democrats largely haven't quibbled with the Fed over interest rates. However, a few Democrats, including Warren, are torching Powell and the Fed for their giveaways to the biggest banks. Financial analysts are divided over the Fed's bank deregulation. There is an argument that giving the banks some slack will encourage them more to expand their customer base and increase economic activity. However, bank deregulation increases the likelihood that financial institutions will take more risks and play fast and loose with their operations. And as we've seen in the past, when the economy crashes and banks fail, it's the U.S. taxpayers that end up footing the bill to keep the banks alive. Donald Trump's tax and spending bill, if passed by Congress, would add to the risk of a U.S. economic collapse. And so together, there is a strong argument that multiplying the risks across the board right now is unwise. Thankfully, Senator Warren knows these issues and is articulating her concerns in a clear and compelling manner. With every hearing and every television appearance, Warren is trying to hold the line for most Americans and keep the wealthiest banks, institutions, and people accountable. It is an uphill battle these days, but Warren keeps on fighting, and she's making a difference. By the way, over on the other side of Capitol Hill, Democrat Jasmine Crockett in the House recently made Marjorie Taylor Greene and other House Republicans eat crow over their lies in a hearing.
I would remind members of both sides of the aisle that President Trump's approval rating is soaring, and last I checked, congressional approval is not. And I think that bears witness.
Well, congressional approval is low, but Burchett's claim about Trump is absurd. And Texas Democrat Jasmine Crockett used a parliamentary maneuver to put the facts into the committee record.
Thank you, Chair Lady.
Madam Chair, I have a unanimous consent.
Without objection.
Thank you so much. This is just from a couple of hours ago. Trump pivots to distractions as polls show collapsing support for his agenda.
Without objection, so ordered.
The next one is Donald Trump's approval rating plunges in multiple polls.
Without objection, so
The next
ordered.
one, Donald Trump's approval rating. New polls show shakeup over Iran bombing.
Without objection, so ordered.
The next one, Trump's approval rating drops to term low amid Israel-Iran war.
Without objection, so ordered. I hope you're not reading the same thing from your phone, which it looked like. I now recognize.
clarification-
I now recognize Mr. Lynch from Massachusetts for 5 minutes.
I just want to clarify. I can give you the sources because
Mr. Lynch is recognized. Ms. Crockett, you're rudely interrupting Mr. Lynch's 5 minutes.
Well,
I've
Ms.
already said without objection, so ordered.
Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.